have discussed a couple of things. We have discussed about the course. We talked about what is your course, and we have discussed about syllabus. We have talked about the prescribed textbook, okay, and the books that are there. Also, we have discussed the evaluation methodology, right? In fact, I have shared today morning the various rubrics. Of course, I have mentioned that the evaluation weightages may vary when I'm going to finalize it in the VTOP. So I hope all of you have looked at it. So we have discussed these points yesterday. And also we have discussed essentially what is soft computing. Okay. When we say soft computing, yesterday we said it is not a single technique, rather it is an umbrella of techniques, okay, where you have the neural networks, you have fuzzy logic, you have genetic algorithms, you have rough sets, like this, a branch of techniques. And remember, these techniques, if you notice, they are also regarded as optimization techniques. Okay, they are also recognized as optimization techniques. But why, first of all, these techniques are regarded as soft computing techniques? So what is soft here? What is soft? Similarly, when there is something soft, is there something hard? Yes. So then what is hard computing? This also we discussed. Okay. Yesterday we have discussed these points. Now, essentially, what is computing? When you notice, computing is nothing but there is something you are giving as a consequent. Sorry, you are giving antecedent and you are getting an output which is consequent. Okay, there is some consequent for some antecedent, but is it that you get just like that? No, there is some kind of a function which is operating on your antecedent. Now this function is regarded as a mathematical model. Okay, so this is typically a computing environment. Now, when you look at this environment, what is hard here? So, in a conventional digital logic or our conventional computing is based upon. So, what is hard? What is hard? Our conventional Boolean logic, okay, or discrete logic, on which our regular calculations, our flip-flops, registers, everything is working. The discrete logic is all dealing with high amount of precision. Okay, there is high amount of precision. So as I have said yesterday, when you are adding 2 plus 3, even if you add or I add, the answer is same. Similarly, you add n number of times, the output is same. So irrespective of your how many times you are performing, who is giving input, your output is same. So always your conventional computing deals with high amount of precision. Okay, so the basic operations on which our conventional computers are working is with precise calculations, right? So they deal with precise calculations. But remember, the humans, or forget the humans, not only humans, any species, if you consider on this particular planet, the basic purpose of this species is not to perform precise calculations, right? The human's purpose, the evolution of humans, the purpose of the evolution of humans, if you notice, the humans are basically not intended, okay, to perform calculations. Okay, our evaluation, when you see, of course, we are doing because of our ability, but it is not to perform calculations. Any living being on this planet. But what is their purpose? Their purpose is existence, survival. Okay, is that clear? Any doubt here? Any doubt?
No, sir. So
So
could you
when you,
repeat the?
yeah. So if you notice the species on this planet, whether it is humans or whether you take any animal, our purpose is, if you notice, we need to survive. We have to survive somehow. We have to, we should keep our existence. So that is our purpose. Okay, in that process, over the period, there is a lot of evolution in the human history, or for that matter, the evolution of the species on this planet. Fortunately, humans, because of their ability of the thinking, reasoning, learning, and all that, they are doing much above things which are above the survival, just survival, right? But basic the human brain, when it is evolved, or when the purpose of the species on this planet is to see that they are surviving. So in that process, it's not that we look at the precise precision. If you see the purpose of this existence, there is a lot of ambiguity we deal with, lot of uncertainties we deal with, lot of vagueness, right? Imagine, as I have said yesterday, you imagine one of you have gone to one of your friend's house, right? If you go there, by the time, imagine if the friend is going out, he may say that, okay, yeah, please come and sit for a few minutes, I'll come back. That means you have to wait for some time. Now the question is, what is this few minutes, or how much time do I have to wait? Is it that 5 minutes? Is it that 3 minutes? Is it that 3.5 minutes? Or is it 10 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? How much time I'm going to wait? So he just said, wait for a few minutes. If you give it as an input to the system would certainly ask what is few. But whereas you adjust, understand what is few, depending on the context, right? Depending on the context. Imagine that if you are having some important work with that gentleman, then you will wait even for 30 minutes or 1 minute, 1 hour. Imagine that you don't have much important work, and if you have some other work, then you will say, okay, yeah, I will come back in after half an hour. So the time few is getting varied. We with the human brains are able to make this type of calculations in a very better manner than the systems, right? So when we want to build intelligent machines, when you want to build intelligent machines, obviously we are looking at the human brains. Okay, we wanted to capture the way the human brains, we look at the human brains. When we look at the human brains, what we are trying to understand is that we want to see, okay, our purpose is to build the intelligent machines, and for that purpose we are believing that, or we are feeling that intelligent machines can be designed by observing the natural biological brains. When I say biological brains, number one, you have the human brain. Okay, human brains. Similarly, there are other species like ants, birds. Okay, uh, then the bats, like that. Other species, you observe their behavior. Okay, so, and because at certain occasions these species exhibit certain behavior which you believe that it has some intelligence character, either intelligence or optimization. Okay, they do in a wonderful manner, than in fact better than humans, intelligence or optimization. Okay, the way they perform their things. So when our objective is to build the intelligent machines, we are looking at the human brains. When I say human brains, what we are looking at in the human brains? The way we sense, the way we see, okay, our vision, our ability to process or even think, first of all, our ability to learn, our ability to reason and infer things, right? So, and when if you look at these things again, our ability to process natural languages, okay, and above that, your uncertainty and all that. Okay, these are all even emotions and all that. So now the point is the how human brains, especially the human brains are humans are good at doing things that are having uncertainty, impreciseness, uncertainty, vagueness, etc. Right? So we need to, if we want to capture the human ability of handling things, either imprecision, handling things during uncertainty, handling things having vagueness, we need to build the techniques that are of uh, that are of the nature having the ability to address these aspects. Now, how to do that? So essentially, the soft computing is an approach which is proposed by Professor, or soft computing is the term proposed by Professor Zadeh. Okay, soft computing is proposed by Professor Zadeh. Okay, he's professor of University of he was the professor of University of California, Berkeley, and he said it is a technique that has parallel. It has certain techniques that are having parallels in similar that are having parallels similar to the human mind. Okay, so he said it has parallels to human brain. When we say parallels in terms of learning, parallels in terms of reasoning, parallels in terms of optimizing, parallels in terms of doing things that are having lot of imprecision. Yesterday we gave one example about a problem having lot of the uncertainty or imprecision. What is that problem?
Sir, giving tip in a restaurant.
Tips. Exactly. If you look at the tipping problem one more time, you can also Google it. You will find it in the fuzzy logic illustration. Tipping problem, if you notice, I say pay tip, which is 10% of total bill. This is a crisp rule in the sense somebody said, no, I will not pay any tip. If suppose the rule says whatever is the bill amount, pay 10% of the tip. Is there any kind of imprecision here?
No, sir.
Absolutely no. There is no imprecision. Now the question is this, or the way I'm going to model the problem is this. I'm paying the tip based on certain parameters. Number one, quality of food. Then quality of service. Then I'm going to consider quality of the restaurant. Okay. Now imagine I am considering these parameters as variables. Now for each of them, look at, I have values. Quality of food is delicious. Quality of food is good. Quality of food is average. Quality of food is bad. In the similar manner, imagine I have a scale of three things like service is good, service is average, service is bad. Similarly, for the restaurant ambience, I have good, I have average, I have bad. Now, I'm saying, look, you pay the tip in a generous manner. If quality of food is delicious and service is good and restaurant is good. Look at the clause I'm mentioning, or the rule. I'm saying pay the tip generously if quality of food is delicious and quality of service is good and your restaurant ambience is good. How do you pay the tip? How do you bring an algorithm, or how do you write an algorithm that solves the problem in this manner? Can somebody tell me the answer? Any answer from anybody?
Sir, like usually to calculate anything that's related to quality, they use logarithmic scales.
No, forget logarithm. Look at the variables I have and corresponding values I have.
Sir, we have to map the adjectives to some value.
Why? I'm
So
asking
that
you. No, imagine that imagine that all of this entire class has gone to a restaurant. Okay. Okay. Imagine we've gone to a restaurant in the Vellore. Okay. So imagine that the bill amount has come around 2,000 rupees. Now we decided, yeah, if quality of food is delicious and if the service is good and the restaurant is good, and pay the generous amount. How do you do this? So how do you
so
write the
first we have
program
to
for this?
quantify. We have to quantify the adjectives, else we can't
No,
do it.
why you have to quantify? That is my question. Yeah, you have to quantify. There is no doubt. But why you have to quantify it? What will happen if you don't quantify it?
Because these terms are subjective.
Okay. Okay. So that means it is essentially you have to quantify. So you have to quantify it so that what happens if you quantify? You get precise values. Okay, you get precision. If you don't quantify it, they are fuzzified values. There is no precision, so it is imprecise. Whereas if we go to the restaurant, while paying the tip, we consider, okay, if quality of food is good, okay, restaurant is good, service is also good, let me pay a little more tip. Okay, you just think like that. You don't ask, okay, how do I map the quality of food to some numeric? How do I map the service of the the waiter to some numeric or quantify it? Do you quantify and then you pay the tip, or you just pay the tip?
Just pay the tip.
You just pay the tip. right? You just pay the tip out of your intuition, out of your emotion, or out of your feeling, so satisfaction and all that. As somebody said, these are all very kind of a subjective in nature. It varies from person to person. Let us go back what I said about in the previous board. You give some input antecedent, you get an output which is consequent. In a typical computing model, uh, if you see here, is it that you give input, whatever is the input, you apply the model, you get some output, and when I provide the input, when I get the output, is that same or differs in a typical computing environment?
It doesn't differ, sir.
It doesn't differ. But look, when you say that quality of food is delicious, when you feel that the quality of service is good, when you feel that the quality of restaurant is good, the amount you pay is different. When I feel that the quality of food is delicious, when I feel that the quality of the restaurant or the way service is good, what I pay is different. So that means your inputs and your the outputs are dynamic in nature. Whereas in the case of your classical computing environment, they are all not dynamic. Okay, so the real world problems, when you look at on a day-to-day basis, where the typical humans encounter, and in fact we are very 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 good in handling things which are having this type of uncertainty and imprecision. We are very good at it. And if you wanted to take this problem to the computer, you know how many rules you get like this. There are n varieties of rules. Somebody may say that, look, sir, I don't consider all this. I look at only quality of food. Whatever is the service, I don't mind. Whatever is the restaurant, I don't mind. For me, it's only quality of food. You have to define the rule, like pay tip in generous if quality of food is delicious. Somebody may say that, sir, I don't say that, and I may think, I say it's okay if either of the quality of service or quality of food is okay for me. So in such case, you say pay tip in generous manner if quality of food is delicious, then you say or, right? Now you see the
Yes.
amount of rules that goes on and on and on. So when you look at this type of rules, is it that when you go to a restaurant, you define rules like this with all types of permutations and combinations, and then you pay the tip?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Absolutely not. But when you are taking this problem to a system, obviously you need to explore all possible combinations. Okay. And when you want to handle things, you need to take it to all possible combinations. So in the sense that your soft computing is number one, as per the definition of Professor Zadeh, it is having parallels. Okay, it is having parallels with human brain. This is one definition. Okay, when we say human brain, remember human brain is having nearly 10 power 10 neurons. Okay, and each neuron is connected with about 10 power 3 other neurons. So when you look at this, it forms a massive neural network, a human brain. Now, can I build such neural network here? So that is one techniques what we have now. So the soft computing is an umbrella of techniques considering neural network, fuzzy logic, genetic algorithms, and all that. So the guiding principle of soft computing is, so what is the principle of soft computing? So the principle of soft computing is to exploit. You please bear the the spellings. So exploit tolerance for imprecision, vagueness, uncertainty, to achieve robustness, tractability, and low solution cost. So this is the guiding principle of soft computing. So we need to exploit the tolerance for imprecision, uncertainty, vagueness in order to achieve tractability, robustness, and low solution cost in the practical problems. Remember, our conventional computers are the way we are handling things in our engineering problems. These concepts are not there. Okay, so this is the guiding principle of soft computing. And also we discussed the other day about um, what is the difference between conventional hard computing and the current soft computing. The basic premise is that our all real world applications, majority of the real world applications, okay, so your real world applications are having the characteristics such as imprecision, uncertainty, and all that. But remember, when you want to bring precision, it involves the cost. Okay, because you said, sir, if you say that pay generous tip and based upon your quality of food, quality of service, and all that, you want to quantify it. In the process of quantification, what is happening is that so you are having lot of cost. So precision always involves or comes with cost. Okay, precision comes with cost. So you need to build the solutions that are having the characteristics to handle things such as tolerance, imprecision, and uncertainty, and the low solution cost. So now, when you look at the soft computing techniques, the other day we said it is basically an umbrella of techniques that has essentially the techniques that are having parallels in nature. So what are the techniques we said? One is the neural network, second one is the fuzzy logic, then third one is genetic algorithms, fourth one is the rough set. And remember, these are the techniques which we are going to discuss in our class. So let us focus now first 2-3 units on the neural networks. Okay, neural networks. What are neural networks? I'm sure that all of you have heard the name neural networks. Some of you have witnessed some of the neural network techniques. And remember, yesterday I have shared one link where NVIDIA is conducting an 8-hour session on the deep learning and deep neural networks. And it's completely free if you register for that course with your institute email ID. If there is any problem, please write to me. Okay, I will share my email. You can write to me so that I will inform the NVIDIA team. So if you see there, that entire course of 8-hour session, it also has a small project, okay, which is quite interesting project. It helps you to go into the deeper aspects of neural networks, and also the course is works on the Python. So since all of you are familiar with Python, I think it would be a great learning experience. It would be certainly a good learning experience for all of you. Now coming back to the neural network. So the point is that we said the technique is having parallels with the human brain. Now, what is human brain? Human brain essentially has about 10 power 10 biological neurons. Okay. So a brain contains, human brain contains single cell. The basic unit of processing is the neuron, and we have about 10 power 10 biological neurons. And remember, each of these neurons are interconnected. Okay, so that means you take any neuron, typically that would have been connected with about 10 power 3 other neurons. So each neuron is connected with 10 power 3 other neurons. Okay, so what these neurons will do when they are connected? When these neurons are connected, each of these neurons transmit electric impulses. Okay, now if you see the if you see a typical neuron, it looks like this. Okay. Okay. So there is cell body. It receives, since it is a neuron and it is connected with other neurons. Okay. So these are all connections. What is the this is a connection. So this connection is called axon. And similarly, this neuron is connected to the other neurons uh, mm, through a connection called dendrite. Okay, so it's connected to other neurons called dendrites. Now the point is, so it is receiving electric impulses from the various other neurons. So the so you regard there is an input here, there is an input here, there is an input here, there is an input here. Similarly, it produces an output which passes through the dendrites to other neurons. Right? These are all outputs. You can think of it as an output. The internal body of the neuron is called cell body, or it is called soma. Okay, it is filled with certain chemicals like sodium and all that allows the electric pulses to transmit. Okay, so the signals signals that the neuron is receiving through the axons, and this is the signals, the input signals that it is receiving through the axons, and it is getting processed, and then there would be okay, I'm sorry, just give me a moment. I think yeah, this is called dendrite. I'm sorry, this is called dendrite. The input connection is called dendrite. I'm sorry, and this is called axon. Okay, the output is called axon. Okay, I just said this one. I'm sorry for the confusion. Okay, so you are having dendrites giving the, okay, I'll better give the diagram in the fresh this one. So if you notice the biological neuron, it essentially looks like this. As I've said, you have a okay. So this is how this looks like this. So you have your cell body, and you have the connections coming in. And sorry for the confusion. So you have the connections coming in. These connections are called dendrites. Okay. And you have the outgoing connections, which are called axons. Okay. Now the cell body, inside the cell body, this cell body is called as soma. Okay, the inside cell body, and this entire structure is called membrane. Okay, this entire structure of cell body is called membrane. Now it is receiving the inputs through dendrites. Okay, this is input, and this you can think of as an output. So inside the cell body, you have K plus, and you have outside cell body, you have sodium, potassium and sodium. That is allowing the electric impulses to pass from dendrites to the cell body to the axons. So your incoming impulses, that means your inputs. So your incoming impulses can be excitatory impulses or inhibitory impulses. There are two varieties of impulses. Okay. Now, what happens with the cell body is, imagine if the overall input that it is receiving through various dendrites is exceeding the threshold value of this cell body, it passes the impulse to the axons. What is that? If overall or cumulative input of all the impulses is exceeding threshold of neuron, then what happens? Neuron transmits impulses. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So could you please repeat it again?
Yeah. So this is biological neuron. As I said, please bear the spellings. The biological neurons. So what happens? The biological neuron, each neuron is connected with about 10 power 3 other neurons. So each neuron receives the inputs with the connections called dendrites. Similarly, it passes the electric impulses through the connection called axons. The signals reaching this particular cell body, okay, the cell body, if it is exceeding the threshold value of the cell body, then cell body, that means, imagine you are having the input coming into the cell body like this, and if the cumulative input of all these electric impulses is above the threshold value of the neuron, that means every neuron has a threshold limit. So whatever is that your electric impulse, overall impulse, I say overall impulse, cumulative, that's what I have mentioned here. Impulse is exceeding the threshold of neuron. Okay. Then what happens? Neuron sends that electric impulse to the other neurons through axons. Okay. So you say overall electric impulse, cumulative electric impulse, or aggregated electric impulse to the cell body. If it is exceeding its limit, threshold, then the neuron fires. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When your neuron is sending the electric impulses out, that means your incoming impulses are called excitatory impulses. Okay, that means your neuron is exciting. So transmitting the impulse to the other neurons through axons. Imagine if your overall impulses is below the threshold value, that means your impulses are inhibitory impulses. That's what actually meaning of the incoming impulses being excitatory or incoming impulses being inhibitory in nature. Okay. So the point is, we said you have a biological neuron. We have talked about how these biological neurons work. Of course, we have not gone into the details of the synapse, the synaptic weights, and whenever there is a neuron fires, what happens is, if you notice here, the connections are not exactly connected. The axon is not exactly connected with the cell body. There is a small gap here. Similarly for every connection. So that gap contains your Na plus and inside body contains K plus. These two chemicals allows the electric impulses transmit though there is no direct connection. Okay. So these chemicals allow the electric pulses to transmit from the cell body to the axons. So there are a lot of other, the biological related stuff that you can read about the biological neurons and its working. Now coming back to the, the way the biological neurons are working, people have observed it and thought that why not we build an artificial neuron. When I say artificial neuron, all of you please listen carefully. When I say artificial neuron, the previous the slide we talked about biological neuron. Now we are saying artificial neuron. Okay, do not think that it is a physical entity. It's not a physical entity. It's not like a plastic made or something like that. Okay, or an artificial limb kind of a thing. When we say artificial neuron, it is basically a mathematical model. Okay, please understand that first. So basically a mathematical model. So it is the mathematical representation of your biological neuron, what we have seen. So how do I say that? I say that, look, there is a entity. It has connections that are giving as an input. It has an output. Okay, input connections. Okay, I am calling this input connection as X1, X2, X3, and X4. And I am calling this output as, say, Y. Now, I am saying that, look, this particular neuron is having a threshold called T. And also, there is one more important parameter. Every connection, X1, X2, X3, X4, there are totally 4 connections. Each connection is having a connection weight, W1, W2, W3, and W4. Now, I'm saying in the biological neuron, you can regard these connections as dendrites and you can regard this connection as an axon. What I said for the case of in the case of biological neuron, when your overall input, okay, I said overall input or aggregated input or cumulative input. How do I calculate what is the cumulative input to this neuron? So the cumulative input you calculate as X1 W1 plus X2 W2 plus X3 W3 and X4 W4. This is your cumulative input. Okay. This I am regarding it as capital X. Okay. If this cumulative input is exceeding the threshold value of the neuron, that means if X is greater than T, then neuron fires, that means you get y is equal to 1, greater than or equal to t. If x is less than t, I say then y is equal to 0. That means neuron do not fire. Is that clear?
Can you
Yes,
please
sir.
explain what is W,
Yes.
sir?
Yeah, can somebody is asking a question. What is that?
So can you please explain what is W?
Yeah, so the W is connection weight. W is connection weight. That means for every dendrite, in the case of biological neuron, you say this is a dendrite. We are assuming that every dendrite is having some kind of a, some kind of a weight. So what we are giving is for every connection input connection, it is having a weight. Okay, so this is required so that you give certain weightage to the connections. Okay, so every connection is having a weight. So your cumulative input or overall input to the neuron is calculated as the actual input multiplied by the connection weight of that particular connection plus and so on. That means you regard it as xi sum of I xi wi. I is equal to 1 to n. Okay. In this case, you have about 4 neurons. So I is equal to 1 to 4. x1 w1 plus x2 w2 plus x3 w3 and all that. So what actually this weight is going to do is it is going to determine, okay, the weight is going to determine the strength of that particular connection. Okay, it determines what is the strength of the connection. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So people felt, okay, let us model the biological neuron functionality. I'm talking about single neuron. Okay, let us model the biological neuron functionality in this particular fashion, like what we have discussed right now. So this is how the fundamental neural network concept was started, with single neuron, then multiple neurons, then arranging the neurons in a different kinds of architectures. So you have feed forward neural networks, you have recurrent neural networks. Okay, various kinds of architectures have come. Now look at the rule I have written here. This is a rule, firing rule people call. If x is greater than or equal to t, then y is 1. If x is less than t, this is y is equal to 0. This is called firing rule or activation function. Typically, we call it as activation function. Okay. Of course, there are n varieties of activation functions. In the interest of time, I will pause here. I suggest all of you to go to the files section of the